I was standing in my kitchen putting the finishing touches on a 3-layer chocolate cake when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was the morning of my grandson's 7th birthday party, and I had been up since 5 o'clock getting everything ready. I had rented a bounce house, ordered a magician, and spent $4,200 booking the entire back pavilion at Riverside Park in our town of Hadley, Connecticut. The text was from my son, Troy. It said that the party had been moved to my daughter-in-law Vanessa's parents' house and that my attendance would not be necessary because it was going to be a small, intimate gathering. I read it 3 times, and then I did something I never expected. I picked up that cake, walked it straight to my neighbor's front porch, rang the doorbell, and went home to start making phone calls. Within 72 hours, I had canceled the college trust fund, frozen the down payment loan, and changed the beneficiary on my life insurance. But that was only the beginning of what happened when they realized the man they called a walking checkbook had finally closed the account. Before we continue, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, and hit that like button if you think family should treat each other with respect. Let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Garrett, and I'm 64 years old. I spent 38 years working as an electrical engineer for a defense contractor in Hartford, and I retired 3 years ago with a solid pension, a paid-off house, and savings that I had been building since I was 26 years old. My wife, Diane, passed away 8 years ago from pancreatic cancer. She was the love of my life, and after she died, I poured everything I had left into being the best father and grandfather I could be. Troy was our only child. We raised him in a modest colonial on Maple Ridge Drive with a big backyard and a tire swing that I hung from the oak tree the summer he turned 4. He was a good kid growing up, polite, hardworking, made the honor roll most semesters. Things started shifting when he met Vanessa during his junior year at UConn. She came from money, old Fairfield County money, the kind of family that measured people by their zip code and the car in their driveway. I tried to keep an open mind. Diane always told me not to judge people before getting to know them, and I respected that. But from the very first dinner at their family's home in Westport, I could feel it. Vanessa's mother, Judith, looked at my calloused hands like they were something that didn't belong at her table. Her father, Martin, asked me what I did for a living, and when I told him, he nodded politely and never brought it up again. To them, I was blue-collar, dressed up in a sport coat, a man who worked with wire and circuitry while they managed investment portfolios and sat on charity boards. Troy and Vanessa got married when he was 27. I paid for the rehearsal dinner, contributed $35,000 toward the wedding because Vanessa wanted it at a vineyard in Napa Valley, and flew out 16 of our family members on my dime. At the reception, I was seated at a table near the kitchen with my cousin Linda and a couple of Troy's college friends who didn't fit in with the Westport crowd either. Vanessa's family filled the first 5 tables closest to the dance floor. I told myself it was fine. I told myself what mattered was that Troy was happy. 2 years later, my grandson Oliver was born, and everything changed for me. That boy had Diane's eyes. I swear it. Big and brown with little gold flecks that caught the light when he laughed. I was there in the delivery room because Troy asked me to be, and I held Oliver before he was even an hour old. I whispered to him that his grandmother would have loved him so much it would have hurt, and I promised him I would always be there. For the first 5 years, I kept that promise. I babysat every Wednesday and Friday so Troy and Vanessa could work. I picked Oliver up from preschool, took him to swimming lessons, taught him how to catch a baseball in my backyard. I set up a college fund in his name and deposited $800 every single month. I helped Troy and Vanessa with a $120,000 interest-free loan for the down payment on their house in Glastonbury, a 4-bedroom colonial that Vanessa insisted on because it was in the right school district. The agreement was that they would pay me back $1,500 a month. In 3 years, I had received exactly 4 payments totaling $6,000. I never pushed it. That was my mistake. Every time I thought about bringing up the money, I would see Oliver's face and decide it wasn't worth the argument. Then about a year ago, things started getting colder. The Wednesday and Friday babysitting became just Wednesdays because Vanessa's mother had retired and wanted more time with Oliver. Fine. I understood that. Then Wednesdays became every other Wednesday. Then it was just whenever they needed me for something specific, like when Judith and Martin went to their place in Palm Beach for the winter. I went from being a regular part of my grandson's life to being the backup plan. The birthday party was supposed to be my big moment. Oliver was turning 7, and I had been planning it for 2 months. I asked Troy back in January if I could throw the party, and he said absolutely. I showed him the pavilion at Riverside Park, the bounce house catalogs, the magician's website. He seemed genuinely excited. We even picked out the invitations together one Saturday afternoon at my kitchen table. Oliver sitting on my lap helping me choose between dinosaurs and superheroes. He picked dinosaurs. I spent $4,200 on the pavilion rental, the entertainment, the catering from that barbecue place Oliver loved on Route 9, and the decorations. I had a custom banner made that said Oliver's Dino Adventure with hand-painted Tyrannosaurus Rex figures. I ordered a special dinosaur fossil excavation kit for every kid attending, 22 of them at $18 each. I even arranged for a real paleontology student from Yale to come and do a presentation with replica fossils. The morning of the party, I was up before dawn. I baked Oliver's favorite cake from scratch using Diane's recipe, the one with the chocolate ganache filling that she made every year for Troy's birthday when he was growing up. I was spreading the frosting carefully, thinking about how Oliver's face would light up when he saw those little plastic dinosaurs I was going to arrange around the top layer when my phone buzzed. The text from Troy said what I already told you. Party moved. My attendance not necessary. Small, intimate gathering. I stood there with frosting on my fingers and read those words until they blurred. Then I did something I almost never do. I called Troy immediately. He picked up on the 4th ring, and his voice sounded tight, like he had rehearsed what he was going to say. Dad, before you get upset, this was Vanessa's call. What do you mean my attendance is not necessary at my own grandson's birthday party that I planned and paid for? There was a pause, and I could hear Vanessa saying something sharp in the background. Look, Troy said, lowering his voice like he was trying not to be overheard. Vanessa's parents are hosting. They have this whole thing set up at their house. A petting zoo, a bounce castle, a professional entertainer. They went all out. I went all out too, Troy. I have $4,000 worth of reservations sitting at Riverside Park right now. I know, and I'm sorry about that. But Vanessa thinks it would be awkward having both parties on the same day, and her parents already invited everyone. So cancel theirs. I planned this first. You said yes 2 months ago. Another pause. More murmuring from Vanessa. Dad, it's just easier this way. Oliver will have a great time. We'll do something with you another day. Maybe take him out for ice cream next weekend or something. Ice cream. 2 months of planning. $4,200. Diane's recipe. And I was being offered a consolation ice cream trip. What about the people I already invited? I asked. Vanessa's sending out a message to everyone letting them know about the change of venue, meaning letting them know I was being replaced. I felt something shift inside my chest. Not heartbreak exactly. More like a lock clicking open. I understand, I said, and I hung up. I stood in my kitchen looking at that 3-layer chocolate cake sitting there on my grandmother's crystal cake stand. I thought about Diane and what she would say. I think she would have been angry long before I was. She always had better instincts about people than I did. I picked up the cake, walked it next door to the Henderson family, and told Janet Henderson to enjoy it with her kids. She looked confused but grateful. Then I went back to my kitchen and sat down at the table. The quiet in my house felt different than usual. Not lonely, just clear. Like static had been removed from a radio signal, and I was finally hearing the actual broadcast. I picked up my phone and called the pavilion to cancel. The deposit was non-refundable. I called the caterer. Same thing. The magician was more understanding and refunded half. In total, I lost about $2,600 in one morning on a party that someone else had decided didn't need me. That afternoon, I did something I'm not proud of, but don't regret. I drove past Vanessa's parents' house in Westport. I told myself, I just wanted to see if Oliver was having a good time. The street was lined with luxury SUVs. There were balloons everywhere. A professional petting zoo set up in the side yard with actual goats and a miniature pony, and about 40 people milling around the property. Through the iron fence, I could see Oliver running with a group of kids, laughing, wearing a birthday crown. I also saw Troy standing with Martin by a bar that had been set up near the pool house. They were both holding drinks, and Troy was laughing at something Martin said with that eager-to-please look he got around Vanessa's family. The look of a man performing for approval. I sat in my car for about 2 minutes. Then I drove home. That evening, I poured myself a glass of bourbon and opened my laptop. I started going through my financial records one by one. The $120,000 house loan with $114,000 still outstanding. The $800 monthly college fund deposits, totaling $47,200 so far. The credit card I had added Troy to for emergencies that he had used for $3,800 worth of restaurant meals and golf outings in the past 6 months alone. I pulled up my life insurance policy and saw Troy listed as the sole beneficiary of a $750,000 payout. For the first time, I added it all up. In the past 7 years since Diane's death, I had spent or committed approximately $340,000 on Troy and his family. $340,000. That number sat on my screen, glowing in the dim light of my office, and I stared at it until my eyes burned. The next morning was Monday, and I moved with a kind of calm energy that surprised me. By 9 o'clock, I was sitting across from my financial advisor, Richard Chen, in his office downtown. Richard had managed my accounts for 15 years and knew my situation well. "I want to freeze the college fund," I said. "No more monthly deposits." Richard looked at me over his glasses. "That's a significant change. Can I ask what's going on?" "Family restructuring," I said, and something in my tone told him not to push further. By 10:30, I had called my bank and removed Troy as an authorized user on my credit card. By 11, I was on the phone with my insurance agent changing the beneficiary of my life insurance from Troy to a split between Oliver's college fund, which would now just grow from what was already in it, and the Diane Hollister Memorial Scholarship at the community college, where my wife had taken art classes. At noon, I called my attorney, Cheryl Watanabe. Cheryl was sharp, practical, and did not waste time with pleasantries. "I need to understand my legal position on a property loan," I told her. "I gave Troy and his wife $120,000 for a house down payment. We have a signed promissory note with a repayment schedule. Are they current on payments?" Cheryl asked. "They've paid $6,000 in 3 years, so they're in significant default." "Yes, you have options, Garrett. The promissory note is enforceable. You could demand full repayment, negotiate a revised schedule, or pursue legal remedies including a lien on the property." What would a lien do practically? It would attach to their house. They couldn't sell or refinance without satisfying your debt first. And if they default completely, you could potentially force a sale. I want to send a formal demand letter first. Give them 30 days to start making regular payments according to the original schedule. Cheryl had the letter drafted by 3 o'clock that afternoon. I approved it by 4. It was sent by certified mail before the post office closed. Then I waited. The phone call came on a Thursday evening, 11 days after the letter was sent. I was grilling salmon on my back patio with a baseball game playing on the radio when Troy's name appeared on my screen. "Dad, what the hell is this letter from a lawyer?" "It's a demand for repayment of the money you owe me, Troy." "You're seriously doing this? Over a birthday party?" "This has nothing to do with a birthday party. This has to do with $114,000 that you agreed to pay back and haven't. You know we've been tight. Vanessa's been doing the kitchen renovation and we just bought the new Audi. You bought a $52,000 car but can't make a $1,500 payment to your father?" Silence. I could hear Vanessa in the background asking who was on the phone. "Dad, this is going to cause real problems. I'm not the one who created the problems, Troy. I'm just done pretending they don't exist." He hung up. 10 minutes later, Vanessa called. Her voice was pure ice. "Garrett, this is completely unacceptable. You're going to destroy your relationship with your son over money." "My relationship with my son was being destroyed long before this, Vanessa. I just didn't have the courage to admit it." "What's that supposed to mean?" It means I'm tired of being good enough to write checks, but not good enough to attend my own grandson's birthday party. That was a family decision, and you need to respect it. I did respect it. Now I'm making some family decisions of my own, and I'd appreciate the same respect. She called me selfish and petty and told me I was going to die alone if I kept acting like this. Then she hung up. Over the next 2 weeks, the silence from Troy was deafening. No calls, no texts, not even a photo of Oliver. It hurt more than I expected, but I held firm. I spent my mornings walking the trail along the Connecticut River, afternoons reading in my sunroom, evenings cooking elaborate meals for one. I joined a woodworking class at the community center and started building a bookshelf. I had dinner with my old colleague Frank DeLuca and his wife twice. I accepted an invitation to join a poker group that I had been turning down for 2 years because Wednesday nights were supposed to be my time with Oliver. Then the 30-day deadline on the demand letter passed with no payment. I called Cheryl. "File the lien," I said. "You're sure? This will show up on their property records. It could affect their credit." "I'm sure." 3 days after the lien was filed, Troy showed up at my front door at 8 in the morning. He looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were red and his shirt was wrinkled. Behind him, in the driveway, I could see Vanessa sitting in the car with her arms crossed. "Dad, you have to remove that lien. We were about to refinance the house to get a lower rate, and the title search flagged it. The bank won't proceed." "I know how liens work, Troy. I told you there would be consequences if you didn't make the payments. This is insane. You're my father, not some debt collector. I can be both when I need to be. You owe me $114,000. You signed a legal document promising to repay it. I gave you 30 days, and you ignored me. We were going to figure it out. You've been saying that for 3 years. Troy ran his hands through his hair. Vanessa's going to lose it. Her parents are going to find out. This is humiliating. You know what was humiliating, Troy? Sitting in my car outside a birthday party I wasn't invited to, watching my grandson through an iron fence, having $4,000 worth of canceled reservations because I wasn't needed. His face changed then. Something cracked behind his eyes, and for a split second I saw my little boy, the one who used to ride on my shoulders and call me the strongest dad in the world. But then Vanessa honked the horn, one sharp blast, and the moment was gone. "We'll get the money," Troy said flatly. "Just give us time. You have 60 days to set up a payment plan with Cheryl Watanabe. If I don't hear from her by then, I'll pursue the full amount." He walked back to the car without saying goodbye. I watched them pull away and stood on my porch for a long time afterward, listening to the birds and feeling the spring air on my face. 2 months later, I got a call from Cheryl. They've proposed a payment plan, $2,500 a month for 46 months. They've already made the first payment. Good. There's something else. Garrett. Troy's attorney mentioned that Vanessa's parents offered to pay the full amount to make this go away. Troy refused. He insisted on paying it himself. That was the first thing my son had done in years that made me respect him. The payments came in on time every month after that. But the calls didn't come. Neither did the visits. I heard through Frank DeLuca, whose wife played bridge with someone in the Glastonbury Women's Club, that Vanessa and Troy were having problems. That Vanessa blamed Troy for not managing his father, whatever that meant. That there was talk of counseling. 5 months after the birthday party incident, I was in my garage building a cedar chest when a small car I didn't recognize pulled into my driveway. Troy got out alone. He was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, clothes I hadn't seen him in since college. He looked thinner. He stood at the edge of the garage and watched me sand the lid of the cedar chest for a full minute before he spoke. "Vanessa and I are separating," he said. I put down the sandpaper. "I'm sorry to hear that." "No, you're not." "I am, actually. I never wanted your marriage to fail. I wanted you to be happy." He leaned against the doorframe and stared at the ceiling. "She's taking Oliver to her parents' house for a while. I'm staying at the Glastonbury place. How's Oliver handling it? He keeps asking when he can come see you. He misses your backyard and the tire swing. He talks about the dinosaurs you were going to have at his birthday." That hit me harder than anything Troy could have said intentionally. I had to put my hand on the workbench to steady myself. "He's welcome here anytime, Troy. He always has been." Troy nodded slowly. He opened his mouth like he was going to say something else, then closed it again. He walked toward the oak tree and put his hand on the trunk, right where the tire swing rope was tied. "I remember when you hung this," he said quietly. "Summer of '89. You were 4, and you wouldn't stop begging me for one. Mom used to push me so high I thought I could touch the clouds. She loved that swing as much as you did." Troy was quiet for a long time. Then he turned around and looked at me with wet eyes. "I'm sorry about the birthday party, Dad. I'm sorry about a lot of things. I let her family make me feel like I had to choose, and I chose wrong every single time." I didn't say anything right away. I just walked over to the mini fridge in my garage and pulled out 2 beers. I handed him one, and we sat on the old lawn chairs by the workbench. The same chairs Diane used to sit in while she watched me fix things and told me I was using the wrong tool. "I don't need you to apologize for the past," I said. "I need you to be present in the future." He nodded. We sat there drinking beer while the sun went down, not saying much, just being in the same space for the first time in what felt like forever. Before he left, he asked if he could bring Oliver by that Saturday. I said I would have the tire swing checked and the grill ready. That Saturday, Oliver came running up my driveway at full speed and launched himself into my arms so hard he almost knocked me over. "Grandpa, I missed you so much," he said into my neck, and I held on to him and closed my eyes and let that feeling fill up every empty space inside me. We grilled hot dogs. We caught fireflies in mason jars. I taught him how to use a tape measure, and he helped me sand the cedar chest, wearing safety goggles that were way too big for his face. When he fell asleep on my couch that evening with his shoes still on and grass stains on his knees, I covered him with the quilt Diane had made and sat in my armchair watching him breathe. Troy and I have dinner together every Sunday now. He started paying the loan back at $3,000 a month instead of $2,500 because he wants it settled faster. He sold the Audi and bought a used Honda. The divorce with Vanessa is proceeding, and Troy has filed for joint custody of Oliver. Some people might say I went too far with the lien and the legal threats. Maybe they're right, but sometimes the only way to save a relationship is to burn down the version of it that was killing you both. My son was drowning under the weight of someone else's expectations, and I was drowning under the weight of being needed only for what I could provide. Last weekend, Oliver and I were in my backyard. He was swinging on that old tire swing, and I was sitting in Diane's lawn chair with a cup of coffee, watching him pump his legs higher and higher against a blue Connecticut sky. "Grandpa, can I ask you something?" he called out. "Anything, buddy. How come you don't come to our house anymore?" I thought about it for a moment, because sometimes it's better when people come to you. He seemed to think about that with the deep seriousness that only a 7-year-old can manage. Then he smiled and said, "I like it better here anyway. You have a tire swing." I laughed for the first time in a long time. A real laugh. The kind that Diane used to say came from somewhere deeper than the lungs. That evening, after Troy picked Oliver up, I sat on my back porch and watched the stars come out over Hadley. My house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. The cedar chest I'd been building was almost finished. Sunday dinner was already planned. My grandson's handprint in plaster from an afternoon art project was drying on the kitchen windowsill. For the first time in years, I wasn't anyone's checkbook or backup plan or convenient option. I was just Garrett, a grandfather with a tire swing, a woodworking bench, and a family that was slowly learning to value something more than what he could buy them. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. And as always, thank you for listening.